Last one beelining the way they came in. I got him.
At the beginning of the movie, we're introduced to exactly who we're dealing with here. The Freeman family, and a mother named Haley who is very obviously the reason this household is still breathing. Once the shooting stops, her partner Galen steps outside to check on everyone, and that's our cue to meet the rest of the family properly. Rain, Galen's daughter, and the family's best shot. The kind of person who never seems to waste a bullet. Manny, full name Emmanuel, Haley's oldest, clearly a capable fighter, but visibly carrying something heavier than a rifle. Danis, still growing into her role in all this. And Cookie, the youngest, already being raised inside the same unforgiving rulebook as everyone else at that table. Now here's the context the movie doesn't hand you right away, and it's worth knowing up front because it explains literally everything that follows. 14 years before this ambush, a fungal outbreak tore through the planet's animal population and wiped out almost all of it. What came next was worse. Wars fought over whatever food was left, followed by a famine vicious enough to finish off anything the fighting hadn't already destroyed. No livestock survives in this world. No grocery stores, no fast food. There's only land still capable of growing something, and everyone left alive is either protecting a piece of it or trying to take one by force. That's why a working, defensible farm isn't just a home anymore. It's the single most valuable thing left on the planet. And that's exactly why Haley, a former soldier who runs her household with the same discipline she once used in uniform, doesn't raise her kids like children so much as she trains them like a unit that has to be combat ready at a moment's notice. Out here, that's not paranoia. That's just Tuesday. That night, dinner looks almost ordinary, right up until you notice the kids quietly testing each other on whistle codes between bites. One pattern means danger's close, another means it's safe to breathe again. It's the kind of drill you only put your children through if some part of you genuinely believes their lives could hinge on remembering it correctly. The next morning, Haley sends Manny out on a supply run to an old friend of hers named Augusta, and pairs the assignment with a rule dressed up as advice. Don't talk to strangers, and don't get pulled into anyone else's problems while you're out there. It sounds simple enough. It's about to become the single hardest instruction Manny has ever tried to follow. From here, the film settles into the rhythm that's kept this family alive for so long. Sunrise drills, rotating fence patrols, hours spent hunting through dying woods for whatever's still left to eat, and evenings spent hunched over a radio full of static, straining for any fragment of news about which nearby farms are still standing. Haley homeschools the kids herself between all of it, and even that comes with rules. Assigned reading, close supervision, no room for distraction. Every part of this family's existence is built around one belief, hammered in from childhood: peace is temporary, and the next attack is only ever a matter of when, never if. That belief is about to be tested harder than it's ever been tested before. Augusta radios in with news that shifts the entire tone of the film. A neighboring farming family, the Flemings, has just been wiped out by a group of raiders working this stretch of territory. She wants Haley to come help train survivors from the surrounding farms to defend themselves before anyone else meets the same fate. Haley says no, flat out. It's a small moment, but it tells you everything you need to know about this woman. Giving up her family's location, even to help someone she genuinely cares about, is a risk she refuses to take. Whatever compassion Haley still has left in her, it stops the instant it threatens her own children. The next day, Manny finishes the drop-off and starts the drive home, with no idea that everything is about to change. That's when Haley takes the call that turns a gang of raiders into something far more disturbing. The Flemings weren't just killed. According to Augusta, they were eaten. This was never robbers. There's an organized group of cannibals working this territory now, and they've already proven they leave no one behind to tell the story. Before Manny even makes it home, he takes a detour that's about to complicate his entire life. Stopping at a river to cool off, he notices a girl about his own age swimming nearby, and instead of climbing back in the truck like he's supposed to, he watches through his rifle scope as she heads toward what looks like a hidden camp buried in the trees. He can't get her out of his head. When he sneaks back the next day hoping for one more glimpse, she's already gone. So he does the one thing a lonely teenager raised behind an electric fence knows how to do. He sketches her face from memory so it doesn't fade. Quick heads up before we go further. If you're the type who lives for slow-burn survival stories, where one small decision ends up costing everything, you're going to want to stay locked in, because this is exactly where this story starts spiraling. If you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, now's a smart time to do it. Things are about to move fast. A few days later, Galen takes Manny and Danis out to scavenge an abandoned supply depot. What's waiting inside stops all three of them cold, bodies hanging from the ceiling, arranged almost like a warning. Before they can even process it, a group of armed men steps out of the shadows, and for one unbearable second, it looks like they've walked straight into a fight they can't win. Instead, the strangers calmly claim to be military, stationed nearby to protect local farms. Galen, still shaken from what's hanging over his head, asks the one question actually on his mind. Were these the men who were supposed to be protecting the Flemings? The soldier confirms it, and that answer is the last thing he'll ever say. Seconds later, the Freemans open fire and cut down every one of them without hesitation. Only then does Galen turn to his children and confirm what he already suspected the moment they walked in. The Flemings are gone, and these men were never anyone worth trusting. While Danis searches through one of the bags, an elderly woman lying motionless among the corpses, playing dead this entire time, rises up behind her and shoots her before disappearing into the trees. Galen carries his daughter back to the farm, where Haley goes to work on her right there on the kitchen table, doing whatever it takes with what little medical supply they have left to keep her breathing. The guilt of pushing to search those bodies eats at Manny immediately. Rain refuses to let him spiral though. She points out bluntly that if he hadn't reacted the second he did, Danis wouldn't have made it home at all. Haley tries reaching Augusta again to warn her about what's happening. All she gets back is static. That night, Manny hears movement near the tree line and, against every instinct telling him not to, goes out alone to investigate. He raises his weapon, orders whoever's hiding to show themselves, and freezes when he realizes it's her, the girl from the river. Except now she's terrified, hurt, and begging him for help. This is the exact moment Manny makes the call that's going to blow up in his face later. Rather than bring her straight to his parents like he knows he should, he hides her in the barn instead. He gives her water, tends her wound, tries to convince her he's not a threat. Understandably, she isn't buying any of it. As far as she's concerned, an armed stranger just took her against her will. He tries to explain, a little clumsily, that his mother simply doesn't extend trust to outsiders, injured or not. Over the visits that follow, he keeps pressing for real answers. Who she is, why she was alone out there. She finally breaks and admits she's only trying to find out if the people she loves are still alive. When Manny unties her hands, as a gesture of trust, she drops the detail that changes everything between them. She didn't stumble onto this farm by accident. She used the radio to track it down on purpose, because her aunt told her the Freemans were the one family who might actually help her. Something softer creeps into the tension after that. He tells her about something as small as how much he loves swimming. She admits, a little shyly, that she'd noticed him watching her that day from the riverbank. The next morning, Haley and Galen are rounding everyone up for chores when they realize Manny's missing. Down in the barn, the girl is playing music off his old player and dancing while he watches. Possibly the most unguarded either of them has been in the entire film. That piece lasts about 30 more seconds. The barn door flies open, and Haley hauls the girl outside at gunpoint while Manny is locked in, pounding on the wood, powerless to stop whatever happens next. Outside, Haley wants answers immediately. The girl finally gives up a name, Dawn, and claims she's a nurse connected to some kind of government relief effort, that her group was ambushed and she barely got out alive. Haley doesn't buy a word of it, and fires a warning shot close enough to make her point without question. Terrified, Dawn blurts out the detail that reshapes the entire conversation. Her aunt is Augusta. The same Augusta Haley has spent days failing to reach on the radio. Meanwhile, Manny finally breaks free of the barn and sprints for the radio, desperate to raise Augusta himself. Nothing but static answers back. When Haley finds him there, furious that he's taken matters into his own hands, the fight between them turns into something much bigger than an argument over a radio. Manny insists Augusta could be in real danger. Haley fires back that Augusta is more than capable of handling herself, and that the family's only responsibility right now is protecting their own land, not chasing every stranger who wanders out of the trees. She accuses Dawn of manipulating her son, and honestly, at this point, it's hard to argue she's wrong. Manny doesn't stay to keep fighting about it. He grabs Dawn, climbs into the truck, and drives off to find Augusta himself. By the time Haley realizes what's happened, she's already chasing after them. Manny and Dawn reach Augusta's camp, only to find it completely deserted. That's when Dawn finally tells him the truth. She lured him there deliberately. The cannibals had already taken her aunt and the rest of her group hostage, and forced Dawn to use Manny as bait to gain access to the farm. This, it turns out, is exactly how this group operates. capturing loved ones and using them to draw survivors out into the open so their land can be taken by force. Before Manny can even fully absorb what she's just confessed, something moves in the dark behind him. At almost that exact moment, on the other side of the map, Haley reaches Augusta's house to find it dead silent, blood smeared across the walls. She barely has time to register the scene before a man grabs her from behind and chokes her into unconsciousness. Back at the farm, things are about to get just as ugly. Galen spots movement near the fence line, something that looks, impossibly, like a deer, an animal that hasn't existed in this world in well over a decade. It isn't a deer, it's attackers disguised in deer hides, and by the time Galen realizes his mistake, they've already got him pinned to the ground, a nail driven through his hand to keep him there, while the rest of the group storms the property behind him. Inside the house, Rain and Cookie watch every camera feed cut to black at the exact same instant. Rain orders Cookie into hiding and takes up position at the window with a rifle, already knowing precisely what's coming. Outside, Galen is bleeding, pinned, with two of his captors preparing to eat him alive right there in the dirt. One of them actually bites down on him, and somehow, that's the exact thing that snaps him back into full survival mode. He tears his hand free of the nail, grabs it off the ground, and kills both men with it before either one can finish what they started. In the cell where she's being held, Haley wakes up next to Augusta, badly hurt, but alive. Back at the farm, Rain trades gunfire with the cannibals now closing in, taking several of them down before her ammunition runs low, and the window she's using for cover finally shatters under return fire. Galen, bleeding out and barely upright, orders her to fall back into the basement immediately. Down in that cell, Haley finally pulls the full story out of Augusta. The cannibals forced her to send Dawn to the farm by threatening to kill her if she refused. Haley promises to get them both out alive. Augusta reveals one more critical detail. There are more captives hidden nearby, including children, who also need saving. That's when the leader of this group finally shows his face. What follows isn't just a threat. It's practically a challenge to everything Haley believes about herself. He tells her she's not as different from him as she'd like to think, that she kills without hesitation too, that she's training her own children to do exactly the same thing, all of it justified in the name of survival. Haley doesn't flinch for a second. Killing to survive and eating people, she tells him coldly, are not remotely the same thing, and no amount of talking will ever put those two acts on equal footing. The debate doesn't stop what happens next, though. One of the leader's men turns on Augusta right then and there, treating her like meat to be prepared, while Haley, restrained and completely out of options, is made to watch every second of it. Out in the woods, Manny and Dawn stumble onto three starving teenagers in hiding, clearly survivors from Augusta's group. Dawn finally lays everything out for him. Betraying him was the only option she believed she had, if it meant saving her aunt and these kids. Manny, instead of holding on to anger he'd have every right to feel, chooses to forgive her instead. Back in that cell, Haley has been left for dead, until a man approaches to make absolutely sure of it. She's nowhere near as finished as she looks. She overpowers him, strangles him with her bare hands, grabs a rifle off the floor, and comes face to face with the cannibal leader, just as he walks back through the door. At the farm, Galen is holed up with the youngest kids, but Dennis is still trapped upstairs, cut off inside a closet, still weak from a gunshot wound that's barely had time to close. Galen doesn't hesitate for even a second. He heads back upstairs alone to get her, telling everyone else to stay exactly where they are, no matter what they hear happening above them. Haley finally fights her way free and runs straight into Manny, who's come back looking for Augusta. What he finds instead is her body. In that single moment, everything about his mother, every harsh rule, every warning about strangers, every wall she's ever built around this family, suddenly makes complete sense to him. Back at the house, Galen creeps upstairs just as Rain kills every light and seals every window, plunging the entire home into total darkness. What follows is the single most brutal stretch of the whole movie. Trapped inside with no idea what's waiting for them, the remaining attackers never see it coming. One by one, Galen picks them off in the pitch black, the silence broken only by muffled struggles and short bursts of gunfire. When Rain finally brings the power back on, Galen is still on his feet, badly wounded, but alive, standing over the men who thought they'd already won. Elsewhere, Haley and Manny finally reach Dawn and the rescued teenagers. The instant Dawn learns her aunt didn't make it, she collapses right there in the open, the grief hitting her all at once. Back at the farm, Galen manages to get Dennis down to the basement before finally collapsing from blood loss, and his daughters scramble to keep him alive. Checking the cameras one last time, Rain spots 2 attackers still outside, dousing the property in gasoline, ready to burn the family out if they can't get inside any other way. Wounded as he is, Galen refuses to just sit and wait for that. He tells Rain to let them in instead. Just as Haley and the rescued teenagers finally make it back to the property, gunfire erupts out of nowhere. Haley orders Manny to get everyone underground, while she faces down the last of the attackers on her own. Inside, Rain deliberately lets the 2 remaining cannibals into the house, using a motionless Danis as bait to make them believe she's already dead. One presses a blade to her throat, while the other tears through the room searching for anything useful. Outside, Haley takes a bullet but keeps fighting anyway, dropping several more attackers before finally running dry on ammunition and being forced to fall back toward the barn. Inside, one of the cannibals stumbles onto a hidden stash, ammunition, and an entire collection of real, rare spices, the kind of thing nobody in this world is supposed to have anymore. She's so stunned by the discovery that she never notices Galen rising up behind her until it's already too late, and he shoots her dead where she stands. At the exact same moment, Danis, very much alive, stabs the second attacker, and Rain finishes him off with one final shot. Manny arrives back with Dawn and the surviving teens right as it all unfolds. Rain isn't exactly thrilled to see Dawn's face again, given everything her arrival has cost this family. But Dawn ignores the tension entirely and goes straight to work stabilizing Galen's wounds. Realizing his mother is still out there fighting on her own, Manny doesn't stop to think it through. He runs straight back outside. Haley, badly wounded and limping toward the barn, gets cornered by the last 3 cannibals standing between her and safety. Somehow, despite everything her body has already survived tonight, she manages to take down 2 of them with nothing but a blade. The third finally gets the better of her, driving a knife into her back and pinning her to the dirt. Just as he raises his weapon to finish it, Manny arrives and shoots him dead without a second's hesitation. He drops to his knees beside his mother, begging her to stay awake, to stay with him. She stops responding. He's left sobbing over her, certain he's just lost the one person who held this entire family together. Days pass. The house sits quiet in a way it hasn't in a long time. The family sets the table for a meal, the same way they've done it 1,000 times before. Except this time, something none of them expected happens. Haley appears at the top of the stairs, scarred, limping, alive. The family gathers around that table together, and for the first time in this entire story, there's nothing left to defend and nothing left to fight for. Just a shared meal between people who very nearly lost everything trying to protect one another. Real food on the table. Real spices. A taste of abundance none of them ever expected to experience again. And here's the detail that makes this ending land even harder once you know it. This exact plot of land has belonged to Haley's family since the 1800s, passed down from an ancestor who escaped slavery and crossed the border to claim it as his own. That's genuinely where this movie's title comes from. Which means everything you just watched isn't only a story about surviving cannibals in a collapsed world. It's a story about one family fighting, generation after generation, just to hold on to the one thing that was ever actually promised to them and never delivered. Here's the debate I want you to settle in the comments. Did Haley's refusal to trust anyone outside her fence line actually keep this family alive? Or does a mindset that rigid eventually get people killed instead of saving them? I genuinely want to know where you land. Drop your take below. And if you were just as locked in reading this recap as you'd be watching the actual movie, here's the deal. Hit subscribe before you go. It costs nothing, takes 2 seconds, and it's the only reason channels like this one get to keep making more of these. If you made it all the way to the end, you already know you enjoyed it. So make it official, drop a comment with your honest thoughts, and I'll see you in the next one.